there's rare moments that wow.
It's not ideal.
Max Verstappen were over at his house for dinner having a fine old time.
Is he leaving? Welcome to the Inside Track, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of Formula One through our exclusive access to Red Bull Racing. I'm Rick Edwards, journalist, broadcaster, and, like any self-respecting podcaster, middle-aged man.
And I'm sports journalist Matt Majendie. Each week we bring you all the latest backstage gossip, latest news, and find out who's thriving and which drivers are under pressure.
So on today's show, quite a lot to get into. We're going to look back on the events in Belgium, including the weather delays, the very fine margins between McLaren teammates Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. We'll talk about some of the most sensational driver moves in Formula One history, by which I mean moves from team to team rather than overtaking.
Yeah, right.
And we'll also get into what's going on at Red Bull. Verstappen finished behind Charles Leclerc, not on the podium, fourth, but then won the sprint. So, mixed, I would say, but quite a lot to talk about there. As always, if you want to watch us in the studio or get the latest video content from Race Day, subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Inside Track Podcast. So, Red Bull. You were there. It's the first race that Red Bull have ever had without Christian Horner.
Yeah, 405 races. He hasn't missed a single one, which is amazing. He clearly doesn't get ill or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is the first race without him in attendance. So it was just interesting to get a sense of all that within the team.
Yeah.
And to give an idea of the surprise of the news of him being removed from his role. I found out that on the Saturday night at Silverstone, so just a few days before he was axed, he had Max Verstappen and Yuki. Axed on the Wednesday.
Yeah.
So Yuki Tsunoda and Max Verstappen were over at his house for dinner, having a fine old time, business as usual. And then I think it came as a surprise to everyone when that announcement happened on Wednesday. And it was odd feeling kind of in the garage because he's an immensely popular figure on the sort of factory floor, you call it, and within the team. He's been kind of. He has this man of the people to him feel, even though he's a multimillionaire. And
he sort of is or was Red Bull Racing. He is
quintessentially Red Bull Racing.
Team. I mean, you associate it with different drivers through the years, but he's the consistent.
Yeah, and penny for his thoughts as well. Watching, I think he sent some good luck messages to people, which was nice, even though he's from afar and removed from the whole situation now. And it was interesting. We saw Verstappen win that sprint race, and almost felt like, I don't know if you felt it, if you watched that it was a slightly muted response to how...
I wanted to ask you that.
Yeah.
It wasn't a sort of full-throated celebration.
I was trying to think...
I mean, sprint races...
Well, I wondered whether I was reading too much into it, because it's a sprint race, so it's not as big a deal.
Yeah.
But you would think there would have been greater euphoria, but I just think it's a team trying to find its feet under a new leader, and there's insecurity, people aren't sure of what that means for them. People will be worried about their jobs or the direction, whatever it is, and there's that sense. But I mean, what a start to come in with a new boss and win that sprint race. That was kind of the dream Saturday.
Too early to get any sense of what sort of team boss Macias will be.
No, I think I got a good insight just from being there. Initially. Very affable, approachable people person. I saw him talking to both of his drivers, proper arm around the shoulder to Max Verstappen, very sort of very nice and approachable. I think everyone felt they could always talk to him, but with Macias, there's certainly that personality to him, that personable side, so people will feel that strength. There was one big change. I talked before at the race that they wouldn't see any change at all, and actually he made the call, I believe, to put the new floor on Yuki's car. That hadn't happened before, so that's actually one big change. So that was a spare floor that was going to be for Max, but he decided to put that on Yuki's car for qualifying in the race, and you actually saw the positive effect of that because Yuki qualified in 7th. Unlucky with the apologist.
You must have been delighted with that.
Apologist, because he was unlucky with that pit stop. He wouldn't have finished far back as he was, but that was unfortunate. But that's the first sort of shift we saw there. Actually, he arrived via helicopter on day one with Yuki Tsunoda. They arrived together, and they've obviously got a close relationship. I did speak to Macias briefly, not actual formal interview, but I caught him as he was walking from this sort of split level in Spa. So the garages are one level and the hospitality down, and so I walked down with him.
Fan of the podcast?
Big fan of the podcast.
Fantastic.
He's happy to come. Goes without saying. He's happy to come on, wants to talk, but it was, he was actually apologising that he wasn't speaking to us this weekend because it just crazy busy for him to try and...
I will let him off this once, I think.
But looks all good for a chat in Budapest at the next race.
It must be so interesting coming in to run a team. Like just what you said about him putting an arm around Max Verstappen's shoulder, because it effectively now, more so than ever, is Verstappen's team. I mean, it's always sort of, for the last few years, been Verstappen's team, but everything is really geared around him. But you've got to come in and sort of be his boss. I know that the relationship isn't quite that simple, but I wonder how. Yeah, I wonder how easy it is to manage that.
When you have a driver who is that brilliant and that powerful.
Yeah, I mean, what am I supposed to say to him?
Yeah. But I think he can just be himself, and he'll be very much happy for Max to do as he was. But it did feel very Team Verstappen. It was interesting. In the past, I think I've talked, like in Austria and Silverstone. Austria, I felt in particular, there felt like a sort of tension there. And I didn't know that was because I thought that was because the head honchos, the owners were there from Red Bull Austria. But obviously things were playing out as they were. Now, that uneasiness, we know that there was tensions between Christian Horner and Jos Verstappen, Helmut Marko. That's well documented. There was in that side of things, there was a more relaxed feel, and there was quite all smiles between
beaming from ear to ear.
Well, there was quite a lot of smiles between the Verstappens, the Austrians, Helmut Marko. Helmut Marko, tellingly after the sprint race, came out of the garage, all smiles, shaking hands with everyone on the pit wall. Interestingly, he said after Horner had been removed, he did a speech to the factory where he said people just need to smile more, which I don't know, that went down brilliantly. But anyway, at least he was being true to his word of doing that as well. And there was a big sort of Verstappen presence, like his mum and granny were there, as well as his dad's obviously regular presence. I watched mum and granny, first practice with them at the back of the garage. And he's very sweet with his mum and his granny in particular. It was sort of funny to go behind the curtain and see those little moments and then you realise this superhuman athlete is incredibly human, normal, and very respectful of his granny and his mum, and just sweetly talking and laughing away with them.
Aside from the sprint race, and clearly that went really well for Verstappen and Red Bull, fourth place, and just never really got that opportunity that you sort of felt that Verstappen probably would to get into third, to get past Leclerc. I guess they'll be a little bit disappointed.
I think if you were to, and you'll probably agree with this, the best they were going to hope for, I think, was third.
Right.
The way it was looking in the place.
Yeah.
But the way they'd gone with their wing, so they went for the skinny wing for the sprint race, which made sense because it was dry, so they didn't need such downforce. That was the one they did in Silverstone, then backfired in the wet. And so obviously they went for a larger wing with greater downforce because the weather forecast was shocking. But actually, because there was such a delay, it almost hampered them a bit. You heard him and Hamilton were both going, come on, let's get racing. Let's race in the wet.
It's lovely and wet. Yeah.
So actually, maybe that would have been his chance. If in heavy rain, he might have had a better shot at that. But the McLarens looked quick. They really did look quick.
Yeah.
I feel there'll be a frustration from everyone that there wasn't a podium place. But sprint race, fourth, as you said, off the top, mixed bag. They'll take that sprint race as certainly a positive start to the new era.
Yeah, but I guess that I just always think of Verstappen in the wet being
brilliant,
extraordinary, and it just wasn't quite that, was it? But then I guess it wasn't quite wet enough.
No, it was funny, wasn't it? It was an odd one in that it looked ridiculous when they started that race. It was,
but it dries quickly.
It does. It's just the way that the characteristics of that circuit, it can dry pretty quickly. And there are sections of that dried very quickly. There were some unsafe areas. But I don't know, what did you think about the delay, 80 minutes? I felt they could have started a bit earlier than that.
I thought probably, but then I completely understand that if the choice is, start a little bit earlier, but maybe it'd be a bit riskier in terms of visibility and you having an incident.
Yeah.
I just think, I'd probably, on balance, rather that they played it safe.
I don't think they would have played it as safe if it hadn't been for Silverstone. We had Hadjar going into the back of Antonelli, and that kind of...
Exactly.
They hadn't been safe enough perhaps there, and then they went a bit too conservative. So maybe they could have come back a little bit, because...
It's like when a football referee gives a yellow that's clearly not a yellow, and then he balances it up in the next 5 minutes and gets on. It's one of those.
It is a bit like that. But, we don't want, people to get hurt or anything like that. But some of the great thing of Formula One is the jeopardy and the danger. You see people taking the risks, and so you want to see an element of that. And it was interesting to hear Verstappen and Hamilton talking about how they would have liked to have raced more in the wet.
But these are their race positions, and B, these are two guys who
know they're good in it,
are brilliant in the wet. So it's kind of, you can't. they can't be the kind of benchmark.
No, that's
They're
fair
like,
enough.
I think this is completely fine to racing. Yes, of course you do.
I didn't hear McLaren object to it.
No,
They're very happy
McLaren
starting
like,
a rolling
I think we
start,
can
weren't they?
Yeah, stick with it.
Let's have another
do a
8
couple
laps.
more. Yeah. So Verstappen's future then.
Yes.
It seems to me from the outside like stuff has kind of quietened down a bit on that front.
I mean, I know I've always said I've always had the view that he would stay for next season.
Yeah.
All sensibilities point to it. We've talked about the rule changes, so you sit tight.
Yeah.
Now, it seems so. No one's made an initial official announcement. Either Russell staying at Mercedes or Max staying at Red Bull. But it seems like that.
Toto sort
well,
of.
he hasn't made an official announcement. He said we're focusing on that pairing.
Yeah, which is sort of heavily implied.
So that shifted the dial a little bit. So no one's making an official announcement, which is a bit confusing. I don't know why he wouldn't just say if it's not finalised. And the other part to that is we know there's this clause in Verstappen's contract that means if he's outside the top 3 by the summer break, then free agent, he can look elsewhere. He doesn't look like he's going to be outside the top 3. That sprint race kind of cemented that.
Yeah.
George Russell finishes behind him in the main race. There we go. So one more race, and that's not going to be the case. So he is going to stay put. But I don't think those conversations will entirely go away because they'll start back again. And they'll do the announcement that they'll start again. But depending on how Red Bull do, I don't think their engine is as terrible as some people make it out. Actually, I think the numbers seem to be pretty good from their end, for their powertrains. That while a step behind the Mercedes engine for a first time sort of supplier of a unit like that, not a million miles.
I think it's probable that it's next season that will be pivotal, isn't it?
Yeah. If Red Bull come out of the box and they're flying with this first engine they've created, then great. Then he's not an idiot.
Very much if they're not.
But if they're not, if it's the Mercedes engine, where's that going to be quickest? Is that going to be quickest at Mercedes? Is it going to be quickest at another team that they supply? But no one knows, and that's quite fun to see how that'll play out.
Yeah.
But you're right. The sense that that's died down, the rumours. That's certainly the case.
I've read some. And I think, again, this is sort of unsubstantiated rumour, but you'll probably have a view on it, is that Formula One are thinking about trying to, on the sort of Horner-Mekias thing, trying to sort of introduce a rule that means that kind of transfer can't happen. But I don't really know what the
so it's interesting you mention it. I saw that come up. Now that's one of those things that keeps on rearing its head at different points in Formula One. So you've got the Racing Bulls and Red Bull that are obviously owned by the same person, so they're closely aligned, but the rule's very clear on how you keep things separately. You wouldn't have, the team principal moving across from one to another is obviously a dynamic we've not seen before, so that's created that sort of debate. So they're perpetually talking that, but it's not just about those teams. You've got like a Haas, for example, that has a technical partnership with Ferrari, so there's different ties there. So it was interesting. McLaren CEO Zak Brown talked about it, and he said actually he doesn't think Red Bull have done anything wrong in this instance, but maybe the rules need tweaking.
Right.
But I don't see how that's going to happen again, a team boss moving across like that way.
No, and I also kind of don't see what the problem is.
Yeah, it doesn't seem hugely problematic. But I think they're very nervous about that sister team element. I've always got very much the sense that Racing Bulls and Red Bull are very separate entities. They're always racing against each other. There's no sort of in cahoots stuff like that. So I think they, sometimes you have to tighten up those rules and put it on paper just to set that out. But whether we see that manifest itself in rewording or a new regulation or rule, I don't know at this stage.
How is your friend Yuki feeling about the weekend, do you reckon?
I haven't spoken to post race, but I think he's such a wonderfully upbeat character in Matilda. I felt there was frustration talking to him that he wasn't getting these upgrades, that the upgrades that Max has, he doesn't have that. So the fact that Mecchi has made that call, gave him the floor, you're like, I don't know whether he's in his ear going, give me an upgrade, gets that. Suddenly
he knows him quite well.
Suddenly puts him in P7, which is a pretty good qualifying session, bearing in mind where Max finished, wasn't a million miles away. It's a hell of a barometer to go against. I thought, great. So I think he would have felt great about that he's got that sort of backing of the new team boss, that he's getting those upgrades. But I think he'll feel frustrated about how the race went, because, again, it's a pointless finish. There's no points to show for that outing, and that feels harsh.
And unlucky.
Yeah, it was unlucky. Yeah. But wouldn't you think he'd feel positive going to the next race? He's got a quick turnaround to Budapest. Yeah. He'll be feeling more confident in the car and his abilities.
Yeah, and I just wonder if Mekier's coming in sort of feels like someone who's on, like he knows and is going to be quite on side, and like getting the new floor, it feels like it could be quite a positive shift.
Yeah, but there are still the rumours that he'll be replaced
of course,
at the end of the season. I mean, there's chat that they'll bring Isaac Hadjar into the team, that Lawson will stay. Maybe Arvid Lindblad will come in from F2 and do that. Yeah, your rumours as well.
It's basically all I ever say on this podcast.
But if he turns those results round and he heads in the right, then that conversation goes away quite quickly.
Yeah. I mean, if he converts a P7 to a points finish. And starts doing that consistently.
Yeah, he has to be finishing in the points consistently.
Yeah,
and he knows that. He's aware of that. He knows that's what he has to do.
So when you spoke to Yuki, did you talk to him about the changes at the top?
Yes, very much so. Talking about Laurel coming in, obviously someone who is very familiar from his time at Racing Bulls.
He has an engineering mind, so it goes really details and small details, and the small detail is really hard to understand. And if you have someone like Roland that understands engineers, you know exactly what we're talking about.
What about Christian? Obviously, he brought you into the team. A word on him, and I guess probably surprised at his exit at the time?
Very surprised. I got told a couple of hours before they announced it. It was mixed feeling. The relationship started to get very good last few races, and definitely feeling a lot more support from him. Very supportive. I was really appreciating that, and especially even yesterday, he messaged me with nice words, cheering me a lot with the messages. So I'm sure he will come back.
So it's interesting what he's saying about Laurel, because Laurel Mekies is a technical mind. So that's his background in Formula One. So he was used to work, he's been part of the Red Bull family for years. So he's come from an engineering technical background, and he did that at the FIA, and then he moved to Ferrari, and now back to the team. So he's a different background to Horner. So what Yuki's saying is actually having that technical knowledge and understanding of the car is a little bit different. Not all. Some bosses are previously engineers, some are not. It changes, and that's just a slightly different insight. And you talked at the top about what Laurel's bringing in differently, and perhaps that's another early example.
Presumably, Yuki is very aware of all of the speculation around his future.
I mean, they do so many interviews and press conferences, and he gets asked about it. He knows what's going around. He's not an idiot.
Try and block it out.
You as much as you can do, you try and block out that noise. But he'll be aware there's conjecture about his future. When you're not scoring in the points, there's always going to be conjecture. And it was interesting to hear him. I think it's the first time I've spoken to him about like his future and whether he's feeling any kind of uncertainty for beyond this season.
When you hear stories that the team say obviously are not true, that you're going to be axed at the end of the season, like something like that is hard to hear even when it's not true, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of got used to it with that kind of situation. It's like, like I said, it's rumors, and then the only thing you can do is performance, and you have to show in the track. So in the end, I just focus on what I can control, and those things that you can't control, I'll leave it to them.
So it's not that you worry about your future, or do you worry about your future beyond this season with the team and Red Bull? Or
I mean, if I say I'm not worried, it's not true, but it's up to them what they decide.
So do you have to have conversations elsewhere, because this is a crazy merry-go-round world?
It's good to have some options, because always if you have options, that'll be great. And for me, I'm just only so focused into the driving.
So, well, my first thought there is it's eccentric of Yuki to have agreed to do an interview while he was operating heavy machinery.
He's just multitasking.
What was that, sorry?
But I thought he was pretty honest. I thought he was pretty honest about his future, to say, actually, I do feel a bit insecure. It's a bit lights otherwise, and and that it would be silly to not look elsewhere. So I thought it was quite honest insight. I don't think drivers always are that way. But.
Yeah, well, that is something you definitely get from him.
Yes.
Feels like he sort of just says what he thinks. It's quite nice.
It's quite refreshing, isn't it?
Now, what about Red Bull's upgrades?
Yes.
Are these the last ones they'll
Well, it's the last big ones. There's still some talk about there'll be tweaks to the floor, possibly Budapest, and then Monza at the start of September, maybe something like that. But yeah, the last sort of big sequence of upgrades together, things like a front wing, side pods, engine cover, rear suspension, things like that. Being in the garage in FP1, I think they were pretty pleased with the results they were getting from that. But it's not as simple as you make these big changes and suddenly you go faster. No. It then affects the balance and the airflow, everything of the car. So it's a bit of a tinkering operation, not just throughout that race weekend, but the next one, to get the exact balance. And that's what they'll be doing the difficulty in a race like Spa, the one we just had was a sprint race. Normally you have 3 practice sessions. This one only had 1 practice session, so we bring a whole raft of changes. It's hard to get all of those working at the same time and get all that. So that'll be an evolving process, which I think we'll see certainly going into next weekend. Whether they can extricate more pace from that be interesting to see. But they wouldn't be doing these big changes at this point if they didn't think it was going to have a positive effect on their pace.
And you spoke to Pedals about it?
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, it was more positive, that conversation. I think last time he called me ignoramus 3 times. There was only one shake of heads, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, which I was told by at Red Bull that's pretty positive.
That's
so I feel like we've taken a step
you're going to get.
But like the disdain when I ask a question about upgrades and show my
it's palpable. You can
my lack of technical expertise compared to him, but he's so good about talking about it.
When do the upgrades stop coming? At what point? Like, is sort of Monza the last point, or I don't know? I'm just picking a date in the calendar.
There comes a point where the design resource will have to move across fully onto 2026 if we're going to get the car done in its various stages, up running it in Barcelona end of January. So if you look at that date and then you say, OK, up to that point we can have a fraction of that resource working on the 25 car, then that sort of sets a cut-off at which the design work and research work will stop. There is then a portion of time absorbed in manufacturing, production of sufficient quantities, and then to see it at the track. If we predict the last change on, I don't know, I'll pluck a race out of thin air at Monza, then you can work out we stopped some time ago on the 25 car to realise that. And they're quite intensive things to make the floors for these. They're not modular, shall we say. Even the front wing is far from modular. You change one bit, you end up cascading through doing an entire wing. It's a rather unfortunate consequence of the way the rules have evolved. Not necessarily to my liking, but probably get me in all sorts of trouble, won't it? Daring to say that.
What I really enjoy about Pedals is when he speaks to you, you don't even need to hear the sigh.
Yeah.
The sigh is sort of implied, and then he speaks quite slowly.
I am talking to an idiot.
Patiently.
But I think he needs to.
Let me try and get this into your thick skull.
But it's good. I mean,
it's good.
I
need that.
I wasn't, engineering sciences, that wasn't my strength at school, and that's carried on in later life. But he's really good at spelling that out to people, and that's what you need to understand. It's such a complex world, Formula One, and he's one of the, he's been one of the people at that team for forever and a day, and he's just so good at putting that into words. So I actually really enjoy talking to him. There's a nervousness. I feel like competitively inside, I don't want to get as much disdain. I really felt I had a breakthrough in that chat.
Something that occurred to me, though, is your initial suggestion was, do you stop in Monza? And then subsequently, he says, plugging one at random Monza. So,
let's see what happens in Monza.
So, Piastri Norris was fascinating, actually, for the whole weekend, because it was so tight between the two. And this is such a weird Grand Prix in that being on pole, certainly with a rolling start, is not ideal.
It's funny, isn't it?
It isn't.
I think Piastri described it as the worst place to be on pole in the season, which is funny because you saw in that sprint race the slipstream that Verstappen got, and then in turn Piastri gets the move done on Norris. And once you get that move done early in the race, he is then in an easier position to dictate it.
Yeah.
There was the danger it was going to be really boring, but the fact they then went on entirely different strategies, I loved that.
I liked that.
Didn't you?
Really liked that.
And I didn't see that coming at all. I assumed,
I thought
Norris
they double
would follow.
stack. I thought they would just both come in and,
Because actually the loss of time wouldn't have been too bad for Norris in that situation. That probably would have been okay. But then funny, he went on the hard tyres and then as a one-stopper. But then, Piastri was able to do what he... There did seem a point, didn't there, when Norris was catching.
The thing is, though, that Lando was making some headway. He was catching him, and it was quite exciting. But he did just make those few little mistakes that cost him time. And so the promise of maybe we'll have a few laps at the end where they're really going for it wasn't delivered.
Yeah, it didn't happen. I feel for him because he obviously was pushing the car and the tyres he was on was different, so he had to push that car to the limit. So inevitably mistakes come with that.
I don't think inevitably. I know that's the thing. I think there are some drivers. So I think Hamilton at his absolute best would
Verstappen, when
definitely.
perhaps we saw it with Piastri that like he didn't make a single mistake. And
no, although slightly different holding versus
Yeah.
pushing is
fair enough.
is different. But I think that the full push, mistake free, is the kind of maybe a good barometer of absolute.
But it made it so exciting that we thought they were going to have this ding dong side by side. McLaren's going for the win in those final laps, and it didn't materialise. Partly, I think, because Piastri was like, those last couple of laps, he's like, okay, now I'll probably hit the accelerator now, and suddenly he disappears.
Yeah.
And fastest lap, I can go
pretty quickly.
I've been driving within myself,
just in case you were wondering about that.
I thought that was quite like a mic drop kind of announcement at the end of the race. But he bossed that. It was very impressive, fun going to the next race. We'll see. Hopefully, those two vying for pole in the race again.
Yeah, the Ferraris had good races. I mean, Charles Leclerc was never sort of in the conversation for first or second,
third's respectable.
But third's respectable. You look at where they are in the constructors now; they'll be pretty happy. And Lewis Hamilton had given where he started, he had a great race, I think, and looked quite. There was just some stuff in there where you were like, yes,
there was some.
I remember this guy.
There was some great little overtaking manoeuvres. He had the most exciting race of anyone, doesn't he?
I think he probably enjoyed it the most as well.
I mean, it was a good car. The Ferrari looks good. The upgrades they've done, it looks a competitive car. He likes the wet conditions. He likes clawing his way through the field.
Yeah.
But the fact he managed to finish up there, you wonder what he could have done if he'd had a better qualifying session. Again, probably the best he could have hoped for was third.
Qualifying position.
Awful. I mean, awful.
Yeah.
And so he starts from the pit lane, and just goes for it. And suddenly you were like, wait, how's he up there again? It's a bit like Hulkenberg in Silverstone, the previous race.
Yeah.
Suddenly just sort of appears like a magic show. But I got the sense he must have loved that. And I think as a team, they'll be feeling confident. The noise around them, the negative noise and the sort of chaos we were
that's
hearing
subsiding,
earlier,
isn't
it
it?
does seem to be, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They seem like they're going in quite a good direction.
Yeah. Whereas Mercedes, if anything, are going in the other direction around. I'm not quite sure why that is. I mean, not that fifth is not a disgrace from George Russell, but
in terms of how fast their car was, that was the position they could have probably hoped for.
Exactly.
I don't know what you're making of Antonelli. There seems to be a few too many mistakes. He sort of doesn't seem to be as at ease. The Wonder Kid sort of announced his arrival in Formula One quite stylishly, but he doesn't seem to have pushed on. Perhaps, or am I being a bit unkind?
No. I think that's completely fair. I think he's been very clearly disappointed in himself in recent weeks, but then. I think the team would just. I wonder if the chatter around Verstappen to Mercedes has unsettled him.
Well, it's twofold, isn't it? So that chatter is going to unsettle you, whether you're Russell or Antonelli, both.
Yeah.
But also, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes there. They may well be shifting to 2026 more than others because they know they've got this supposedly the fastest engine there.
Yeah.
So maybe part of that's going on, and so maybe they're pegging back. Well, take the foot off the gas for this season a little bit. I don't know if that's the case.
That doesn't look like what Kimi Antonelli's problem has been.
But I'm just saying in terms of George, because we know how good George has been this season. Are they pegging back? Is that twofold? But I mean, Antonelli, everyone's so excited about him, and he has shown that. I think he'll come good. I think the team believe in him. As we said before, Toto's said we're investing in them for the future. So he'll come good.
Okay, predictions time. So if you're new to this, myself and Matt pick out 1, 2, 3 before each race. We then score our forecast against an audience member picked at random to represent you, the listener, as well as a robot who has been selected to represent the growing artificial intelligence community. You had a healthy 4-point lead going into Spa. Can you remember? I could not remember my predictions. I remember that we all had the same drivers in different orders. Can you remember what yours was?
I can't actually.
It's a no. You had Piastri, Norris, Verstappen. Yep. I had Piastri, Verstappen, Norris.
That's right.
So we both get 2 points. The AI
should have been a 6-pointer, couldn't it?
Yeah, I know. And we, same 3 drivers. Lando in first, Max second, Piastri third. So it also gets 2 points, even though that is a worse prediction, annoyingly. And then our audience member selected at random this week was Jenny on Instagram. She went Norris, Max, Leclerc. In a way, I prefer that prediction, but still just 2 points. So no change to the leaderboard. You still are in the lead on 27, me on 23, the Infernal AI on 21, and the audience on 20. Okay. If you want to play your part in lifting the audience off the foot of the table, you can submit your predictions through Instagram. Look for our stories on @theinsidetrack_podcast, or stick one on a YouTube comment under this feed. So this is the thing we wanted to talk about. Driver moves. So I know that it's all gone a bit quiet on the Verstappen to Mercedes front, but there have been some sensational moves in Formula One history. Before we get into them, can you explain sort of how the transfer market in Formula One or in racing works?
Yeah, it's different. It's not like we've got the football transfer window open now, and it's entirely different to that. It's bizarre because some drivers are owned by a manufacturer. I believe Russell and Antonelli are Mercedes drivers owned by them. You know, some like an Ollie Behrman is a Ferrari driver, but he's put in a Haas, for example. So there's sort of different ways of doing it. You can buy a driver out of their contract. You can, as a team, pay to put your driver in another team. There's all sorts of different things. Or someone can end of their time and they're a free agent, they can go elsewhere. So there's quite a few different ways of how that works out. We've got less of a situation. We used to have paid drivers, much more so, where people would come with big backing when teams were struggling financially and bring that money, a few million, to the team, which effectively bring that into the team, and that would partly be their salary. That happens less because we've got the cost cap now, so things aren't so crazy price. But you know, we know that Verstappen has this contract till the end of 2028, but it's very clear in all these situations, if you don't want to stay at a team, you can find out a way to not be at that team, whether that's a clause in your contract, whether that's paying your way out of that contract. So yeah, we see passages of driver merry-go-round. It seems to have calmed down a bit now, but there's still some gaps and uncertainties for next season. We've got Cadillac coming in, don't know who's going to drive there quite. Will there be differences at Red Bull and Racing Bulls? Another example, Ferrari and McLaren look very settled with their pairing. Williams looks settled, I thought, but then there's some rumours about Carlos Sainz maybe going elsewhere. So that sort of fun kicks in as we're heading into the summer a little bit.
Sort of historical moves that have been mad and unexpected.
So the most recent one, I remember when Hamilton moved to Ferrari, it was like, what the... proper, like, there's rare moments that like, wow. For example, Mercedes didn't see that coming. They found, he told Toto Wolff, I think, the day before. And suddenly when that hit, that was like enormous. Driver who's always been affiliated to Mercedes suddenly makes this step across. Yeah. And that is right up there in the biggest of all time, don't you think? I mean, did you imagine, do you remember your surprise at that coming?
Completely agree. Also, there was just sort of loved Hamilton and Mercedes, but a genuine excitement about the thought of
him
because
and Ferrari
just have this, sort of cachet and romance that no other team.
It was like an old sort of a throwback Formula One move for suddenly him to go Ferrari.
Like,
I don't know why.
And it's if you're nitpicking, you sort of think rather he'd done it a bit earlier in his career, maybe if he was going to do it, but then he'd been so successful with Mercedes, why would he? But that's pretty huge. The one that I remember, and I don't know if this was shocking or just that it's because I was at the right sort of age to find this incredibly exciting, was Senna going from Lotus to McLaren to be on the same team as Prost.
We're similar age, and that is exactly resonates with me as the biggest one. You're like, oh my God, that is the best two going head to head, and you knew that was going to be good, and it was.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's and also just to me, sort of emotionally, it's given how, in my mind, iconic Senna, particularly in the in the black John Player special Lotus, like that
driving around in the pouring rain,
like it's just so sort of that is him. But then completely eclipsed by now. When you think of Senna, you think of him in the McLaren.
Funny, isn't it?
But he was so iconic in that previous.
And
car.
So maybe a bit like Hamilton, Mercedes, Ferrari. There's so many ones that I enjoy. Like when a world champion leaves. Like I think of Jenson Button. He was there. He was won the championship at Brawn. It was going to come Mercedes, and and he goes to McLaren. I didn't see that one coming. And taking on Hamilton, and everyone thought he'd have absolutely no chance. With the greatest respect to him, people didn't rate him as highly as Hamilton, and he did a great job. I loved that. Or Damon Hill, I think, getting axed in the season he was going on to become world champion.
I'd forgotten that.
Yeah, I remember I'm sure he learned of the news. This is my memory of the story of a story breaking somewhere else, and that's how he found out about it. And then, nothing happened, and then sure enough, it proved to be right.
It's all good fun.
What would be the best kind of shock move now? Like you could have, Verstappen to Mercedes would have been.
That would have been a big massive one.
It's particularly when someone's affiliated to a team for such a long period of time. In his case, his career, to then suddenly make that shift is somehow more appealing and thrilling.
Sort of haven't really got anyone. I mean, the closest I can think of to someone who is absolutely like they are that car is probably Leclerc and Ferrari.
See, that's why it's interesting you say that. I'd like to see like a Leclerc or someone of that ilk drive the Red Bull, see what they could do. You know, a driver of that experience and expertise, this car that others struggle with. I'd love to see like him or Russell or someone like that to try that car. Just it'd be fascinating to see how they would handle it, because they're both absolutely brilliant drivers. You know, at the top of their game.
But they're not. They're somehow. It's like a weaker association for me, and maybe that's just
no. I think that's fair enough.
But there's no one like Verstappen and Red Bull is probably the one, isn't it? And then before that, it was Lewis and Mercedes. Let's talk Hungary then. So we've already touched on this.
Yeah,
not a good circuit for Red Bull. I think their expectations will be fairly low.
If anyone is predicting McLaren's not in the top two, I'd be quite surprised. That's how I'm seeing the weekend play out. Yeah. It should play perfectly to the strengths of that car. I think Piastri won there last year. We should probably not see the Red Bull flying. There are some people there that still scratch their heads at why it doesn't work for them, that track necessarily.
Do you have any idea? It is odd, isn't it?
Well, it's a funny circuit. Someone said it's almost like a karting circuit. It's bumpy, twisty, whatever. So there's not the long straights. So that speed they have, that they don't take advantage of that. But sometimes, and they've had some misfortune there at some races. But you think they should do better. But I think the sense is that they will not be doing so well. I wouldn't go for podium. I don't know if AI is or you are.
No, I don't think I will. No. It's odd, isn't it? It just feels like it's a bit of a sort of hoodoo.
But it happens. It happens. Yeah. There's just some tracks that just don't work for some teams.
And then once it's in your head, it has to have an effect.
Driver, team, everyone, you just why can't we crack
again?
Yeah. And there is that sort of not quite foreboding, but there's a sense that this is not going to be our cracker this weekend. But you don't know. We talked about these changes they made on the car. Maybe that takes a step forward. They have not shone at this track. So it's interesting it'll be kind of best of the rest. Who's the best of the rest battle? Will Mercedes turn things around, or you'd think it's going to be Ferrari, judging by how they've been in recent weeks? And it's interesting about Budapest, the Hungaroring. Brilliant city, brilliant. So I really like it, actually. The team are well aware that they are. It's a struggling circuit for them. And I talked to Chief Strategist Will Courtney, who's we've had on the podcast a few times. He was talking about the race, but also how, it's a sense that they probably will struggle again this coming weekend.
I was going to ask about Hungary as well. That feels on paper like that's a tougher race for you guys than perhaps this one would be, on paper at least, looking ahead.
Potentially. We've had some sort of more difficult races there in the past. Obviously, we've had some great races there too. So I think it could be more of a challenge for us, but hopefully, the upgrades we're bringing this weekend will help towards that as well. So I think we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're just realistic about these things, aren't
they? It's
not
quite waving the white flag, is it?
No, but it's sort of, it's close. Yeah, it's not toweling.
Yeah. So, be interesting to see. But
by the way, is he leaving?
Yes.
I think I hadn't clocked that for some reason.
Yeah, so that's an odd one in that he's moving to McLaren, but that was a decision taken quite a long time ago.
While ago.
Yeah, before this season started. So he's on a long-term garden leave. So he's seeing through this period. So him sharing the strategy with Hannah Schmitz, it does happen. It does happen that people are tied like that. It is an unusual situation that it's not a common situation, but it does certainly happen in Formula One because you're holding on to these key figures, and there's quite a lot of change at Red Bull. So it's important that he stayed on, and there's this transition to Hannah Schmitz.
Okay, let's do our predictions. So you've got a 4-point lead. The audience are suffering at the base of the table. Who's your 1, 2, 3 for Hungary?
I will go Norris for the win. I'll go Piastri for second, and I'll go Lewis Hamilton for third.
Oh,
why not?
I like that. Yeah, very similar to me.
Yep.
So I'm going Norris, Piastri, and then the other Ferrari.
I think
Leclerc.
I could have gone either way.
But
I don't know. Just maybe I'm going heart rather than head again.
Yes.
Well,
I need you to start losing some points. So I'm happy for you to go heart.
You think he might get the clean sweep here?
Well, do you know what? If I actually, this is probably
This could be the moment it changes.
Did I get the 6? I get the 6, and you get 2.
Yep.
And suddenly,
it all changes. What about AI? Have they got? They must surely have gone a similar
metallic clown. Piastri, Norris, Verstappen.
Okay, I don't think that's going to happen.
I just don't think Verstappen is going to.
It might do, but I don't think so quite. Oh, that'd be bad if it was right.
Well, bad for us.
Yeah.
Good for
AI, not for us.
Sort of good for the podcast as well, actually. But yeah, let's think about us. And we'll select a listener prediction to represent you guys. It's not too late if you want to throw your hat into the ring on our Instagram or on the YouTube comments. So that is I feel like we have not done much of a Hungary preview there, but I'm not sure what we're looking out for. I suppose slightly fascinated to see what's going on with Mercedes.
Yes.
Because, like you say, Ferrari on the up, Mercedes seems to be on the slide a bit. Are they going to be able to abate that? I don't know. So I guess I'll keep an eye on them, and then I guess you're always looking out for your boy Yuki.
This is going to be the one. Is this the one where he finished? Imagine he's on the podium. Would not have predicted that.
You'll imagine the mood you'll come in. Dancing into the studio.
Can I cartwheel through the corridors?
You tell me.
No, actually, I don't. I don't think I can. Give it a go. Give it a go.
Wearing a party hat, encouraging everyone to do the conga with you. When I say Yuki, you say Tsunoda. Yuki!
Tsunoda.
Yeah, exactly. I knew you'd go
Beautiful.
for it.
Natural.
Yeah. Okay, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube. Just search for the Inside Track podcast or have a look in the show notes. We'll be back early next week to review everything that went down in Budapest and then provide some exclusive insider insight from the Red Bull team. The Inside Track is funded and made by BBC Studios, a commercial company that is wholly owned by the BBC. It's produced by Jarek Zaba. Video editing and social media is by Georgina Revel. Paul Smith is the executive producer.